Here we go. Your first chord. Congratulations. I'm really excited that you're on this journey of learning guitar. It's such a rewarding experience playing an instrument, particularly playing the guitar. And just like learning anything, there are ups and downs. But my job is to help you overcome some of the obstacles that we face when we're learning guitar. So I'm really excited to be able to do that, and that you are on this journey of learning and discovering the guitar and seeing the reward and the benefits that come with it. So in this lesson, I'm going to be sharing some tips, things that you're going to want to know, not just for this lesson, but for other lessons when you're learning different chords and whatnot. So the things that I'm going to share today, you'll want to remember for future lessons. Now, we will look at, posture, and we'll also look at finger placement in this lesson. And again, you'll use that for future lessons as well. So we're going to work on the open D chord. And the reason why it's called open is because we're using some open strings. So that means we're just not placing our finger on a particular string on a fret. We're playing it open. So the open D chord uses an open string, so that's why we can just call it the D chord. But if you hear somebody say open, that's just what that means. All right, so let's take a closer look at the D chord. This is how it looks. This is the shape, and then we'll break it down now. Okay, here's a couple things you're going to need to know. Once you start getting your fingers in place, you want to watch out for your elbow. You want to make sure your elbow is not sticking out like that. Get your elbow in towards your body, because a big part of learning guitar is making sure that you have proper positioning in terms of how you're holding your wrist and your arm and your fingers. So you really want to make sure you're keeping your elbow in. All right, so let's take a look at one finger at a time. Now we are going to start with our index finger, which is finger number 1, and then we're going to move to finger number 2, and then finger number 3, and then our pinky is finger number 4, although we're not going to use our pinky for this chord. All right, so let's start with finger number 1. We're going to place our first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Let's move on to finger number 2. We're going to place finger 2 on the 2nd fret of the E string. And then finger 3, we're going to place on the 3rd fret of the B string. All right, now a couple things I need to mention here. When you start placing your fingers on the frets, you want to make sure that you're placing them in the sweet spot. So where is the sweet spot? The sweet spot is not far away from the fret. You don't want to go there, because watch what happens when you go far away from the fret. Okay, you get that kind of crummy buzzing sound. So let's move closer to the fret, and we want to get as close as possible without going over. Because as soon as we go over it, you kind of get that muted or buzzy sound again. So get close without going over. So that's the sweet spot. That's where we're going to place all of our fingers. Now there are chords you're going to see down the road that doesn't always let us go right to the edge of the fret, but when you can, you want to try to get there. Okay, a couple problem areas with the D chord that I notice with a lot of newer students is making sure that you're not muting other strings. So what I mean by that is, if you have one finger that's touching another string, it's going to mute it. So watch what happens with my 3rd finger if it's leaning over. And this is one of the problem areas. So I'm trying to play the E string, the high E string, but you're not hearing anything. It's muted because my 3rd finger is leaning over like that. So what you want to try to do is keep your fingers nice and round. All right, so it's really important that as we're working on chords, we play one string at a time. And you'll notice on the diagram it does tell us to play the open D string, so we will play that. On the other two strings, the E and the A, those are our lowest, our bassiest notes. You're going to see an X, and that just means we're not going to play those strings. So we're not going to play the E and the A. We will play the D as an open string. And then we're going to play the G string, then we're going to play the B string, then we're going to play the E string. Now if you start playing it like that and one of the notes sounds like that, then what you need to do is just sort of adjust your positioning a bit. Maybe you're not pressing down hard enough, or maybe you're too far back, or maybe one of the fingers is kind of leaning over. So you got to try a few different things until you get it so that you can hear nice, clean sounding notes. And then you can give it a strum. All right, that is the D chord. You might notice some discomfort in your fingers. I should mention really quick as well, when I talked about having round fingers, what I mean by that is we just don't want to play with the flat part of our fingers. When we're placing our fingers down on the frets, we want to use the fingertips. Okay, so we want to use the fingertips, and that's how we make sure that we are getting our fingers and positioning them in the way that's going to give us the nice clean sounding notes. Keep your elbow in and work on getting each note sounding crystal clear. It does take some time, but you will get it. It's going to seem really hard at first. Sometimes, I remember when I was first learning, I had to kind of move my fingers in the position that they were supposed to be in with my other hand, just because they weren't cooperating. So I totally get it. I understand it. One of the things that helped me is sort of visualizing the chord. So with the D chord, it looks like a triangle. So it's sort of visualize it as a triangle. You can kind of see it like that. So then as you're placing your fingers there, I've already kind of have a picture of what the chord looks like before you get your fingers there. And then again, you're just going to try to do one finger at a time. Eventually you'll get to the point where you want to put all your fingers down at the same time. You'll get there, but for now we'll just do one finger at a time until you get the chord positioned properly. And then as you're working on this, even 5 minutes a day, 5-10 minutes a day, you're going to notice you're going to get faster and faster, and the chord will be sounding clearer and clearer. That's the goal anyway. All right, we will see you in the next lesson.